The Teaching Learning Formula by Alberto Luis August from the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. Teaching is a science. It has a formula, a simple formula that includes three basic sections: an introduction, a development, and a conclusion. This formula is applied throughout any lesson delivery for any subject area. If a teacher remembers this formula, teaching becomes automatic as the formula is applied. There is a basic understanding to apply this formula as it is directed, reflected in the lesson plan. The previous knowledge is reflected in the introduction. The content is reflected in the development. The objectives are reflected in the conclusion. When educators see the connection between the three sections of the lesson plan and able to visualize this, then the planning of engaging activities for each section becomes simpler. The introduction. This is directly connected to the previous knowledge or prior knowledge, content that the students already know. This section of the plan is known as the hook, the starter, or the captivating activity. It capitalizes on securing the attention of the students at the beginning of the lesson. It is a short, fun activity that can be delivered with an interesting strategy. This section of the plan should be approximately 3 to 5 minutes because it is simply the revision of content or concepts from the previous knowledge of which the objectives were achieved. If a teacher finds that the introduction goes beyond 5 minutes and they find themselves teaching the content, it is an indication that the lesson's objective of the previous lesson were not achieved. The lesson objectives from the previous session must be achieved to ensure the smooth delivery of the introductory activity. Following the introduction is the development. The development is the heart of the lesson. It is aligned to the content or concepts of the lesson. It is the part that has the content of all the concepts that will be taught. This section of the plan is set in clear steps. The number of steps with strategies for engaging activities is all dependent on the content and the length of the lesson. There is no magic number here. The importance is that the steps are sequenced with a clear set of activities that flows from one to the next and each step building on the next. The development section comprises of three considerations. The first consideration is the model of delivery. As the teacher develops each step of the lesson, the teacher must visualize and plan whether each step will be whole class task, small group task, or individual task. The teacher decides how to initiate the sequence of the model, whether to start with whole class, then small groups, then individual students, or maybe commence with an individual activity, then place them in pairs, then combine pairs for small groups, then end with a group activity. It all depends on the number of steps. This is considered as the model. Each step fit into the model in the development section with smooth transition from one engaging activity to the next. A lesson with 3 steps will have a 3 sequence model. A lesson with 4 steps will have a 4 sequence model. A lesson with 5 steps will have a 5 sequence model, and so on. The teacher decides on the model depending on the topic and the amount of content to be delivered. The second consideration is in the development is the methodology. In consideration of the model, the methodology is required to facilitate the content. The teacher then needs to best decide on which methodology will be used, and this is also dependent on the subject and the topic. One of several methodologies can be used. Some of these include the deductive approach, inductive approach, inquiry or questioning approach, discovery method, guided discovery, Socratic method, discussion approach, project-based approach, problem-based approach, direct instructions, or any of the methodologies that exist in the educational field for effective delivery. The selected methodology via its delivery can be easily identified in the development section of the lesson. A skilled teacher with experience is confident of the method selected and knows that it will yield effective results and performance from the students. The development, since it is the major part of the lesson, must be planned with much research. The teacher must ensure a smooth flowing activities. Each step may have several strategies to ensure the effective delivery of the methodology. Several strategies can be applied in each step of the methodology to ensure the effective delivery of the concepts in the sequence of the model. These strategies can be from engaging in think, pair, share, combining pairs, three-way interview, discussion, talking chips, round robin, stations, video analysis, puzzles, concept maps, a worksheet, or any of the thousands of strategies that may exist. The strategic application of these strategies will yield effective results and performance for the students. At this point, we have a fun introductory activity, a development section with clear steps, a model of delivery, and a sound methodology with strategies to see it through. The only part of the plan left for delivery is the conclusion, which is the assessment part of the lesson. This is where a teacher assesses the teaching learning process. This is the part where the objectives of the lesson are assessed and the teacher determines the extent of which these objectives were achieved. If the class can proceed to the next lesson or the teacher needs to reteach the content of that lesson. The assessment can take the form of any of many activities. The assessment can take the form of traditional activities such as the completion of a worksheet, a quiz, or a test. But why limit an assessment to the cognitive domain? Alternative or authentic forms of assessment are strongly encouraged. These forms of assessments captured not only cognitive abilities, but also considered soft skills such as creativity, organizational skills, critical thinking skills, collaboration, problem-solving skills, social skills, presentation skills, leadership skills, and so much more. Alternative or authentic assessments consider holistic assessment of students. Example of these assessments that students can engage in or are mobile, books, charts, posters, projects, brochures, mind maps, poems, rhymes, raps, stories, songs, videos, preparations, presentations, and so much more. In this part of the lesson, always ask, what will the student create? Alternative or authentic assessment are more effective than traditional assessments. The assessment is the final part of the lesson and determines if the objectives of the lesson are achieved. A teacher needs to ensure that this assessment captures not only the lower end of Bloom's taxonomy, such as knowledge, comprehension, and application, but also considers higher order thinking, such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Prior to the assessment activity in the closure is the closure of the lesson. The closure includes the asking of a few questions on the overall content of the lesson. Thereafter, students engage in the assessment activity at the end of the lesson. The teaching learning formula is a simple formula that can be applied to any subject across the curriculum. It consists of three parts: the introduction, that reflects the previous knowledge, the development that reflects the content, and the conclusion that reflects the objectives. With experience, as a teacher grows and develops, application of the formula becomes automatic and yields efficiency and effectiveness in lesson delivery.